Hi, it's Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO here in beautiful Montreal, welcoming you to another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. We're part of Fractional Pros Canada, the home for Canada's fractional community, and you can find us on Facebook. We bring you conversations about everything fractional that matters for fractional executives and businesses from coast to coast. Think of this as your go-to spot for real talk, practical wisdom, and strategies you can actually use, all without the corporate fluff and with plenty of Canadian content. Whether you're a fractional pro or a business in our great country of Canada and beyond, this conversation is for you. Grab your espresso and let's dive in. Welcome to the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. I'm your host and fractional CMO, Robert Mendelson, here in beautiful Montreal. Joining me today is Carrie Tuttle, who is in Calgary. Carrie is a revenue coach and a fractional sales leader who blends technology with human-centric coaching to help leaders define performance gaps and build high-achieving, psychologically safe teams with a specific focus on alignment of sales and marketing. A lot to unpack there. This is going to be a great conversation. Today's Fractional Pros Canada podcast is powered by Fractional Pros Canada, the only Canadian online community for Canada's fractional executives. Join us in our Facebook group. Just search for Fractional Pros Canada on Facebook. And yes, there is no cost to join our community of now over 400 members. Carrie, welcome to the Fractional Pros podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Well, let's get into it. You made a fantastic contribution a couple weeks ago at our recent Fractional Pros Canada virtual meetup, which we hold monthly, and particularly around the sales process, which really resonated. So that's something I want to dive into. But before we do that, I'm really curious about your rather unique blend of technology, human-centric coaching, being a sales leader and revenue coach. So like I said at the top, a lot to unpack. So let's start with sales leader and revenue coach. What is the difference, if any, between those two terms, sales leader and revenue coach?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It is a big difference. It really has to do with, before I set up an engagement with a client, what role do they want me to play within their team? So on one hand, it may be very much that the CEO is going to continue managing the team, and I'm really there to coach the process and mindset, the techniques that they're using, but also the mindset they use to approach it. So, often we will give people tips about how they're approaching sales. Maybe it's something specific like when you walk into a sales meeting, are you reviewing the agenda to make sure that you guys are on the same page of how you're going to spend your time together? And then you go from there as far as coaching the process. But then if their mindset is not right going into the call, they're going to have trouble executing on the techniques that you give them. And so I coach around mindset quite a bit. Now, the other side of that you mentioned was the fractional sales leader. So that is really where I'm embedded into the team, part of the team for 6 months to a year, sometimes longer. And my role is very different. It has to do with, certainly the coaching aspect is there, teaching, but it's really around accountability. So going in and looking at the behaviors and the activity plan that they have in place with for each rep within their territory, and then coaching and holding them accountable to what they said they were going to do, as well as, making sure that all of the follow-up is happening, all the documentation is happening in the CRM, and that they're getting collection on money if that's also part of their role.
Now, I heard you say something interesting. I heard you say if the CEO wants to continue managing the sales team. Now, let's talk about that because Is that typically a good idea for the CEO to be managing the sales team? Shouldn't there be a sales leader, a director of sales, a VP of sales, a sales manager who's managing the sales team?
Yes, there should, Robert. That's a fantastic question. No, it depends on the size of the organization. So in a smaller organization with, let's say, 6 sellers, what you will often see is that the CEO says, okay, well, I feel like I'm not quite at the level where I can justify a full-time resource in a leadership position between me and the sales team. So I'll just do it myself. In reality, does the CEO have time? No, typically not, and nor should they. They have more strategic things they could be focusing on. And yet, what I've heard from CEOs is, or president, like top level leaders, is I don't want to abandon my team. Like they need support and I want to be available to them, but yet I don't have time. And so they feel pulled in both directions, which I totally get. So they really do need somebody who can be available and help with the accountability day to day with the team. And that's why they will consider a fractional professional like myself. And so what we see though is that there's kind of two mindsets. Once they decide, yes, I'm going to use a fractional, sometimes a CEO might be very hands off. They're like, okay, now you deal with it. You're going to go do that. And the other side of it is, oh, I still want to be involved, right? And so they can't step away or let go. And so in both cases, there's a lot of managing expectations and helping them see that, yes, you still need to be involved a little bit because I need to know what are your expectations as far as different scenarios. Let's say an account is trailing off and they're not ordering very much anymore and the sales rep isn't sure what to do. Well, I can coach them on that, but then let's say there's also layer in a performance issue. Now what do I do? What would you like me to do? And at what point does the CEO need to get involved, or HR or somebody else? So we need to have those expectations type conversations early and often.
Right, right. And you mentioned, a recurring theme that we talk about on the pod, which is letting go, right? Getting the sales, the CEO, the founder to let go and hand over the reins to somebody who's better qualified to do the job and who should be doing the job so that the CEO can focus on the CEO stuff, right? It's tough to wear many hats and wear them all very well.
Yeah, definitely. It is. Well, and what we see too with a lot of CEOs is that they started the company for a reason. They were really good at maybe a technical aspect. Maybe they're an IT professional or maybe an engineer. And so they're really good on the technician side of things, but on the people management and especially sales, they're not always good. Some of them are. Some of them are very talented naturally, but others are. It's kind of like this mystifying operation that happens over here that they're like, I don't know how sales happens, and I certainly don't know how to hire and manage salespeople. So they want lots of support.
Yeah, classic story, classic story. The founder, I focus a lot on the manufacturing sector, so I run into a lot of companies who were started by a founder, like you said, probably very often an engineering background, started off with a great idea for product, made a great product, right? Absolutely fantastic product. Start selling it through the normal channels, traditional channels of resellers, dealers, and then the company starts to grow, and you're so inside it, you don't notice the growth. And then one day, you have that moment of like, wow, I'm doing a few $1 million in revenue. I now have about 20 people on the team, and I'm still running everything, and I don't know where to go from here, what to do. And then there's kind of this period of scared a little bit, unsure, don't know. And that's kind of that one of those pivotal moments in a company where either the CEO, the founder is going to make that decision. I need to start looking into some outside professional help, or I'm going to keep doing it all myself. And that's often where we see companies make it or break it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, it's for all of us as professionals, I think there's this place where we have to say we have to be realistic about what our weaknesses are and then figure out, can I train myself? Can I learn to be better at that? Or is it simply something I'm not talented at and therefore I should hire somebody who really is, who can complement
nature
me?
nurture.
Yeah.
The old conversation. Okay, so now in your LinkedIn profile, I found something interesting.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned the term human-centric coaching, and it says you're an advocate for mental health at work. So that's an interesting angle that we don't see too often. That's kind of blended in with everything else that you do as a sales leader or revenue coach. So I'm curious, where does that come from? What is the source of that advocacy and that, highlight on an advocate for mental health at work, which is so important?
It is. It is. Well, so part of my journey, and I'm pretty open about it, is I hit a point in my career where I was feeling totally burnt out. And it just felt like I wasn't working for purpose, I was working for profit. And it just was not fulfilling for me anymore. And that at that point, I was also doing a lot of training around coaching and really seeing people go through transformation and at the same time going through transformation myself. And it gave me a sense of purpose for sure. And I thought, well, if I can't do it for the good of people and planet, which has become more and more and more important for me, then I don't want to do it. So for me, certainly I take on clients who are very focused on profit, but I do my best work with people who have an element of purpose as well. And so we see this going back to that idea of the founder being a really great technician and doing really great work. Often they have a sense of purpose, but they're not always great at communicating it. And so that's where, when we can rally the staff around what really is that purpose, everybody has a sense of fulfillment. And if they don't, it's because it doesn't align with their values. And that's okay. They can, find their dream job somewhere else. But for those who are bought into the purpose and the mission, they get a better sense of, here's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And when we all have hard days, when the days get hard, it's easier to get refreshed or recharged when we remember what that mission is. So when I talk about purpose and then it links to mental health as well, it's okay, we have this mission, and let's say we hit a plateau and we're not maybe growing as much as we want, we're not maybe getting the clients that we want. Well, is it okay to actually give our team a chance to step back and recharge? 100% it is. Is it okay for us as leaders to admit that we're struggling? 100% it is. But I think in a lot of cultures, corporate cultures, we don't allow for that authenticity and for both leaders and staff to be real with each other. I think there's a lot of posturing that goes on, and we see this a lot in sales culture because it can be quite competitive. So everyone's kind of competing and they want to be the best and they want to win, which is an awesome quality. But at what expense and at what point does it become potentially even toxic? And so when I go into teams, that is one of the things I'm looking for. And the ones that I stay with long term are the ones who can move past that. Or it's
Yeah.
not there at all. Maybe it's not even there. Like the toxicity may not be there. And so then, yeah, I don't have as much work to do with the team. But yeah, so that's one of the aspects that I talk about with leaders right away. I talk about purpose. Why are we doing what we're doing? Are you clear on that? And if not, let's get clear on it, because it's a lot easier to motivate people around that rather than just grinding away for more dollars.
Yeah, and one of the things you mentioned is that often the purpose, the mission is very clear, but it's clear inside the founder's head.
Yes.
And there's an exercise that needs to be done to help extract that out of their head. Typical visionary mindset, right? They've got it all, everything's very clear, but it's all stuck up here. So we got to help get that out, get it on paper, communicate that so the team make sure everybody's on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, but when we're clear on it, we can attract clients who are aligned with the same values, the same mission, and want to use suppliers who feel that way or who behave that way. And so then if we drill that down into our qualification, when we're qualifying our clients, we can ask the right questions to make sure that they are aligned with how we do business and we are going to do our best work with them.
Now, you're also certified in emotional intelligence assessments,
Yes.
like EQI 2.0 and EQ 360. So for those of us who are not familiar, could you give us a little bit of insight on why EQ is so critical in sales leadership? You've already touched on that a little bit.
Yeah.
And how do you leverage these specific tools and insights in your coaching, particularly, and I'd imagine this is where they're really the most valuable in high pressure situations?
Yes, 100%. So if I don't give an example, bring me back to it. But I'll start with the emotional intelligence component. So imagine you're in, let's go there, high pressure situation. Maybe it's team selling. You're responding to an RFP and you've gotten an invitation to present. And you have leader, you maybe have a architect or like engineer type role, somebody who's more technical, and an account manager who will then carry on with the account after it's sold. So you've got three people in the room, and then on the other side of the table with the client, you probably have 3 to 6, hard to say, but you'll have multiple buyers on the other side of the table. So now most people would walk into that situation and be quite nervous, right? You're already nervous, you're amped up, and the adrenaline is flowing through you. So the first step in emotional intelligence is to be aware of how you're feeling. If you're not aware, you can't communicate with others how you're feeling, and you can't control it. So we have those 3 elements are self-awareness or emotional awareness, emotional management, and then control, and then communicating with others. And so then we become aware of other people's emotions. So on the other side, we can see their emotions and then help manage their emotions. So when it comes to leadership, we have to start with ourselves. And if we are not good at managing our own emotions, what happens is we react instead of responding intentionally. And when we react, it causes an emotional reaction in others too, right? They're like, uh-oh, boss is ticked off. So they tend to either freak out or maybe put their head in the sand and hide, which we also don't want. So as leaders, it's a tough job because you have so much responsibility for not only yourself, but then how others behave and perform. So the first step I always tell leaders to take is become aware of your own emotions. So my own practice, every day at noon, I have a reminder that pops up. It's like a little task on my computer. It pops up at noon, and it's, how are you feeling? What contributed to making you feel that way? And it's a simple self-awareness exercise. Now, the next then layer of that is telling people. So if I'm anxious or I'm like nervous about something, I'll tell my team, like, hey, I'm kind of nervous about this project coming up, or I'm nervous about coming on the Fractional Pros podcast.
Oh, I hope not. I don't bite.
No, well, everybody's nervous when they're speaking in public, right?
Absolutely. Even I'm nervous,
Yeah,
just, I don't know what Carrie, we haven't met really
yeah,
very much. We haven't spoken a lot before this. You never know, but I kind of get like, it's a good nervous energy. So
yeah.
we could talk about that too, right? Good nervous energy and like negative nervous energy too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's sort of a parallel actually between excited and nervous, or even almost scared. And so they both have similar vibration that's going on in your body and like chemically in your systems. So you can either let it eat you alive, or you can leverage it and turn it into something really interesting and creative. So that's part of coaching. That is really part of how do we harness what you're feeling right now and turn it into something that you want it to be, not being, I guess, a servant to it.
So I love that daily reminder. You have it set in your calendar every day. Do you do this just work days or do you do this 7 days a week? Is it popping up even like on a Saturday at noon? Checking how am I feeling right now?
Yeah.
Nice.
I'll
So,
admit some days I skip it. Like I'm like, eh. But most days I will just take 3 seconds to go, how am I feeling right now? And maybe it's and I also try and use, most of us have a very limited emotional range. So we'll use maybe 8 or 9 words to describe how we feel. But there's something like 3,000 words in the English language to describe our feelings. And
yeah,
so
I
to,
love the emotion wheel. The
yeah,
emotion wheel, right? Google it. Google emotion wheel. You'll see this big graphic comes up and it's got like, I don't know, there's about 6 or 8 at the inner core of like the main. There's like fear,
yeah.
happy, and then it starts to break them out into different levels. And that's a really good way to kind of pinpoint how am I feeling right now to put it into words when you can't really think of all those
Absolutely.
words.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, like happy, okay, great, but are you content?
Hmm.
Or are you excited? Or are you elated? Or what are you actually feeling? What is it
Yes.
really? Yeah.
Now, so if a lot of fractionals are listening and a lot of us work, we're one person show.
Yes.
So we get the pop up at noon, we do the check in. Now you said now sometimes you'll share with your team if you're feeling nervous about a meeting or whatever. Now if it's just let's say me, let's say I've got a proposal that I'm presenting to a prospect in an hour and I'm super nervous about it. I do the check in, I'm like, wow, I'm super nervous. Who do I share that with? If I don't have a team I usually work with, what do I do?
You can journal it, right? Like write it down, acknowledge it in writing if that works for you, or on a video if that works for you. Send it to your best friend. I don't care who you tell, but acknowledge it somewhat publicly. Like journaling can be really effective because it's still private, but you can then look back on previous journal entries and say, wow, over the last 2 months, it seems like I've been anxious many, many times, or I've been frustrated very many times. What's that about? And then you can start to unpack that further because situationally, you might think, wow, my client's really frustrating me. But if you look at it on a macro view, you might say, you know what? I think what's really frustrating me is that I don't feel like I have the skills to manage this situation. How can I get those skills? How can I improve or grow? So it gives you that self awareness to acknowledge what gaps you might have in your skill set, or start to deal with whatever is holding you back.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking, yeah, it gives you the ability to recognize that what's frustrating me is me. It's not actually the client.
Yes.
It's actually me,
Yeah.
my own worst enemy.
Yeah. Usually. I mean, let's be
Very
honest,
often,
right?
right? Yeah, and I've done that journaling, by the way, and
Yeah.
it's incredible. Just getting it out of your head and putting it in writing somewhere has for me at least, it really does the trick. It gives me an incredibly more relaxed feeling that I've now it's out of here and it's somewhere over here now, and now I can just put it over there. That's a
Yeah.
great exercise. Okay, now let's talk about the other end of the spectrum, the
Okay.
technology piece that you use. So, your rather unique blend of technology, human-centric coaching, and being a sales leader and revenue coach. So, technology-wise, are we talking about just AI? I mean, for sure there's some AI in there, or is there other kind of technology in that cloud? Unintended.
Yeah. So when it's interesting because when people think of technology, they do think of AI, and I certainly nerd out on that myself. But it's definitely things basics like, are you documenting your activities? And if you're not documenting your activities, you have no data. You have nothing to analyze. So I encourage every client to use the CRM if they're not already. I don't care what it is. There's a ton out there. Most of them are very, very good because they learn from each other and then they improve. But don't use a spreadsheet, please. Please don't.
But we
It,
love spreadsheets.
I know, but when in this day and age, when there's free versions of software, right? Like you can use HubSpot and it's free for a basic version. Just use it. You don't have to use all the fields, but at least then you can automate reminders. You can create reporting for yourself and get data. Yeah. So, and manage a prospect list, because a spreadsheet is not going to do it for you. It's just too limiting, and it doesn't set you up for success. The other thing then, yeah, let's talk about AI, I guess.
Everybody's favorite topic these days.
Everybody's
Right?
favorite topic. So I would call myself a very curious kind of beginning user. I certainly have an openness and an interest in using it. I've used agentic AI a little bit, and I've created a little bit of automation, but not a ton. I'm not an expert in that. But if, as a sales professional, and especially as a sales leader, if you are not becoming aware and testing AI, you are going to be left behind. And there's two aspects to this. One, you can create if you ask the AI and give it enough instruction, if you ask it the right way, you can get AI to build you an entire proposal if you want. And you can give it the branding, you can get it to basically follow the format that you know and love. However, it's probably going to suggest a bunch of stuff that you never thought of that's even better. So there's that aspect. But also there's an exposure aspect that if you are not understanding how AI works, guess what? Your team is probably using it. So if you don't know what it looks like, what the output looks like, you won't know when you look at something from your team that perhaps they're using AI and it could be a lot better, or it's not presenting you in a brand consistent fashion, and you want to get in front of that. You want to make sure they're not sharing things into open AI that then is exposed on the internet.
Yeah, you hit all the points there on the usage of AI, why it should be used, how it should be used, and why it's so important. Mm-hmm. So, okay, now let's take all of this great package of all these different across the spectrum tool sets that you come to a client with, and now you're helping coach. You're running a sales team perhaps, and there's one person on the team, maybe they're even the best salesperson as far as producing the numbers, but you see them being the worst enemy to themselves. You see them beating themselves up before that client meeting. You see them beating themselves up after that client meeting because it didn't go the way they wanted. They didn't close the sale, whatever it is. What do you do with somebody like that who's not very open to, or maybe doesn't have the maturity, maybe is not even interested in hearing that kind of woo-woo psychological safety stuff, and take a minute and check in with yourself. They're just like, all I care about is numbers, sales. How do you help a person like that with all the skill set that you have, who's not really open to that kind of help?
Well, first, there's a lot of discussion among coaches on, is everyone coachable? And I would argue that everyone is coachable at their level. So they may not go as deep as someone else. Like one person might just be ready for a little bit of coaching and a little bit of exploring and kind of self-awareness. And other people are totally ready to go like way deep down the rabbit hole. And both are okay, right? Like it's not for me to judge how much someone wants to progress in this moment, right? A lot of the thing we have to remember, even as leaders, right? If you're coaching your people and it doesn't matter if you're a certified coach or not in this aspect, if you ask enough good questions that get people thinking, they're thinking about it for a week or 2 or 3 afterwards. It's not all going to happen in the moment. So a lot of times leaders want this instant gratification of, right? Like they have this epiphany moment, and
What's
it's
the magic?
not,
Right.
yeah, it's not going to happen that way. Humans do not switch that quickly. They evolve over time, and some evolve faster and some evolve slower. So it's you have to be patient for one thing, and you probably have to repeat yourself, right? You might have to ask them the same question over and over again. And by the way, questions are important. We can't coach people by telling them, like, hey, Jim, whatever the rep's name is, you need to set the agenda. And then you have the next week, you need to set the agenda, right? Like, okay, you're going to sound like a broken record. Instead, if you say, how did you set expectations with the client for the meeting? And they're like, well, I didn't. Okay, how did the meeting go? Well, it could have gone smoother, right? Okay, what would you like to do next time? And whether they say agenda or not, they're going to start thinking about, how could I get a better outcome next time? So you might have to ask the same question over and over and over again, but don't tell. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. Instead of telling somebody what to do or criticizing them, you put it in a question format. People are a lot more receptive to questions
Yeah.
than statements, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's get into tactics a little bit. So, one of the things that you shared during our virtual meetup, Fractional Pros Canada virtual meetup a while ago, was, we were talking about the sales process and, how do you avoid, I think the question came from the group, something like, how do we avoid as fractionals putting a lot of time into, preparing a proposal, a deck, a pitch, whatever, to a client, and we put all this time into it, and then the client, we don't get the sale, the client ghosts us, whatever, all that. How do we avoid that? And you said something really brilliant. You said you asked for commitment before the commitment. So can you unpack that for us and tell us what that means? What does that look like? What's the magic there?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so yeah, often there's a lot of time wasted because we get to the end of a discovery meeting. We've had a great meeting. We've asked tons of questions about their needs. We totally know that our solution is going to be right for them. We're ready to go. And they say, okay, why don't you send me a proposal? And you're like, okay. And you get really excited and you go away and do that. However, let's say I build a proposal for you, Robert, and you're like, you're my client or you're my prospect. And first of all, I don't know what exactly you need to see in that proposal to know that I'm going to be the right solution for you. And second of all, what are you going to do with that proposal? Right? Like, I send you a proposal, great. Are you going to look at it and then put it in the pile? Or are you going to move ahead right away? Or are you going to compare that against some competitors, some other providers? What are you going to do with it? And if I don't ask the question, that's on me. Like, it's not the prospect's responsibility to tell me what that outcome is going to be after I send the proposal. I need to ask. So let's say we've already clarified timeline. I know that you're ready to go. You want to move. So I'm expecting a quick response. Well, a better way to approach it is, okay, awesome. When I create this proposal, I would like to walk you through it, Robert. Are you okay with that? And you say, okay, sure. That way you can ask any questions you want and I can address them right away rather than you wondering what I meant by something in the proposal. And then, so I don't even send it. Unless they demand it, I don't send it. I actually walk them through, because the other thing is you want to give them a preview of the care and attention that they're going to get by working with you. So if you just send a proposal, you send them a PDF and be like, let me know what you think. Right? That's not personalized attention.
Yeah.
So I would rather give them the, white glove treatment and walk them through it, ask them as we go through it, what questions they have, so that we address it, by the way, before we get to the pricing page. Like, here's what I thought your goals were. Here's how I think I can address those and get you on track to where you want to be. Am I even on the right page here? Are we on the same page? And if they're like, well, no, you missed this and this. Oh, okay, let's talk about that before we get to the pricing page. Because if you send it to them, the first place they're going to go is, what's the cost? So I walk them through it all. We talk about investment. We talk about timeline, by the way, after, because I don't want to just land on price and then go, okay, do you want to buy or not buy? We talk about implementation and what that looks like. And then I ask them how comfortable they are with all of that. And what's the next step? And typically they're telling me, like, okay, well, I guess, yeah, let's get started. How do we do this? And so in that timeline, I'm telling them the first step is maybe a kickoff meeting or whatever that is for your process. But then they know, okay, what's next? Well, let's do that kickoff meeting that you just suggested. So they're ready to go. And of course, there's contract and all that stuff in between, but it feels more natural and it flows rather than being this weird, awkward moment where you're like, do you want to do business together?
Right. So is the commitment before the commitment, tactically, is that making sure that you present the proposal in person rather than just emailing it off, or is there more to it than that?
Okay, yeah. So thanks for bringing me back to that. The commitment before the commitment is really, I want to know if I do a proposal, is there any chance that we're even going to work together? Because otherwise, why am I doing a proposal? Like if they're just saying that so that they can end the meeting in a way that makes them, it's like ending a date and saying, talk to you later. And when you have no intention of talking to that person ever again. It's like the least friction way of ending the call, right? Send me a proposal and then they can ghost you. So I always want to know, okay, great. If I send you a proposal, what do we do with that? Because I always walk my clients through it. Are you comfortable with that? And if they say, really? Then I know that they're not serious. So it's the commitment before we even get to the commitment. And I also let them know, okay, when we walk through the proposal, I'm going to ask you if you want to do business together and if I'm the right provider for you. And then they know that question's coming. They have a heads up.
And this is a great way to kind of filter out, call somebody out.
Yeah.
If perhaps they are just asking for a proposal because maybe it's like, well, my boss I already kind of know who I'm going with. My boss wants me to have a third proposal. So send me a proposal, right? Obviously,
Like,
big waste
no
of
way.
time, right? Big red flags everywhere. And takeaway for people in the dating world, at the end of that day, perhaps not a good thing to say to the other person, send me a proposal unless you really mean it, because you may get, a ring next time around, and it may be harder to say no to it on the spot in that case. So
That's awkward.
that would be super awkward. All right. Team Mojo is the name of your company, yes?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So it says you work with new leaders, sometimes top performers promoted into management who are now leading former peers,
That's right.
right? Which is a great way to promote from within for a company, and is a great way to retain top talent generally. That being said, what are some of the biggest hurdles that you see these, part of the team yesterday leading the team today facing in this new leadership role, that maybe they've never been a leader before, and all of a sudden they have to manage all those folks that they were out drinking with last week?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's so many layers to this. And I myself experienced this. So I was 27. I got promoted into a leadership role and suddenly I was leading my peers. And some of them in our department did a different job than I do. And so now I'm managing people who do something that I have no idea how to even measure if they're doing a good job or not. So that blind spot, I'm going to say, or I guess, yeah, blind spot is a big hurdle to get over for new leaders, because they're like, well, aren't I supposed to know everything? Because my boss, I love them and they know everything, because you think that they do and they don't. So it's a lot of like stuff going on in between your ears. Then the other thing too is you go from being an individual contributor where you're given direction. You're told what direction we need to go in and what productivity we need to see, what results we want. And now you're the person giving that to others, setting it and giving it. And it's like, what? I don't know what to do. And so it's a new world, right? Like where you have to define objectives and come up with ways of measuring outcomes to say to the team, yeah, we're on track, or no, we're off track and we need to fix this. And then that becomes the next step is how do you delegate that to the team and ask them to do getting results through your team rather than always just doing it yourself, which can feel easier sometimes, right? Like it's hard to articulate to someone else what you want to see happen and then trust them that they're going to get that done. And often they can do it better than you can, to be honest, but you're so used to doing it yourself that it's hard to let go of that control.
So is that, that's obviously a big coachable moment, to kind of use the cliche, but it truly is. Yeah. I would imagine you have clients who would bring you in, if they have the foresight to say, hey, Jane is doing, she's killing it. We want her to lead the team and teach the rest of the team her magic. We're promoting her next week. Anything we should know or think about to make this transition really smooth, right? All about change management at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say the biggest mistake that a lot of companies make is they forget about middle management. They don't invest and give enough coaching to them. They promote them. This happens all the time. You see this in sales departments, especially. Top performer, they're like, we want you to lead the team and make everybody else as good as you are.
Yeah. Clone yourself.
Yeah. And it's like, but I don't know how to lead. And what the sad thing that happens is often those top performers they were doing what they were really good at, and they were doing something they loved. Otherwise, they wouldn't necessarily be as successful. But now you move them into management, totally different skill set, and they're not top performers anymore. They've lost their confidence. They don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They don't know how to motivate other people to do something, and those other people can't necessarily do it the way they could anyway. They have to do it their own way. And so this top performer doesn't know how to work with that. And so then you see them leave the organization quite often. And so that's the sad part. And the other sad, or I don't know if it's sad, it's a mistake that companies make is wait until that person is no longer performing or they have a performance issue, and then they hire coaching, but it feels punitive. And so it doesn't have the same impact and positive outcome that you would like to see.
So for business owners, business leaders, CEOs who are listening to this and are thinking about, maybe I need some fractional sales support, what is kind of like the number one reason that they would want to hire somebody like you? What's going on in their company that should be triggering them thinking about, I need fractional sales support?
Yeah, it's really, you're poised for growth. You're ready. You have operational capacity to take on more. You want to support your team, but you also know that your attention needs to be elsewhere. It could be acquisition. It could be strategic partnerships. It could be whatever, fill in the blank, new marketplaces. But you need somebody to coach your team on how to transition to the next phase. And that is the best time to bring in a fractional. And the reason for that is you want support in the growth and getting them to the point where you want to hire somebody full-time as a leader. So hiring a full-time VP at that point makes sense, because now you've got a lift in growth, and you're probably also hiring more sales reps.
Okay. And for all the fractionals who are tuning in, obviously all of us, sales is part of what we have to do, whether we like to or not. So what's the number one tip you can give fractionals to improve our own sales processes?
That is a great question. I would say don't spread yourself too thin. I actually would say focus is your best friend. So really get really clear on who you help. What kind of client do you do your best work with? Because the more you work with companies like that, the more they're going to be endorsing you and enjoying everything that you do well and referring more clients to you. So focus.
So find your specialty, your niche, your tribe,
Yeah.
and really focus just on that segment. As tempting as it will be to focus on anybody who could possibly maybe hire you, at the end of the day, in the long run, that is not the right strategy. It's not the right way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can't scale that, right? Like if you have really great tools that help a certain kind of team, get more of those, and then just keep doing what you're doing and refine your process and get really good at it. And then you can always expand out later, or if you maybe you bring on other fractionals under you, then you can expand out your team and expand to adjacent markets. But yeah, do what you do best.
Billboard question. So you've got a free billboard with a lot of cars and traffic passing by it every day. You can put whatever message you want on it. What's the message you want to put up there to get out to as many people as possible?
I should have this tighter, shouldn't I? Jeez.
Oh, no, this shows that this is unrehearsed and on the spot. So this is live. This is Carrie. The wheels turning live here. Absolutely no pressure. Do you want to check in with yourself, see how you're feeling about the pressure that we're putting on you right now?
No, I know. My
Where?
stomach is tight. Like I feel it. Like, Carrie, say the right thing. Okay.
Want to take a minute to journal, or you're good?
No, I'm good. I'm good. So my billboard would be for the socially responsible organization in Western Canada. I support you in your growth to the next level.
Okay.
Be that simple.
Nice. Where can people find you? How can people connect with you?
Oh, so teammojo.ca is my website, and certainly on LinkedIn you can find me. I've got my middle initial in there, so it's Carrie A. Tuttle.
What does the A stand for?
N, without an E.
I was going to ask, with an E or without an E? Okay. My middle initial is not showing. It's E. It's Earl.
Okay.
Which is I don't know where that came from, but on top of that, it's with an E.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. If somebody is an expert on names who's listening, please DM me and give me some insights. I don't know. All right, funny. Carrie, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for sharing all of that wisdom with us. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Robert. I really appreciate it. And by the way, I really appreciate what you're doing with the community. I think it's a fantastic mission to get all the fractionals together. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you. You know, fractionals in Canada, let's be specific. All the fractionals in Canada together. Sure, one more plug. Fractional Pros Canada. If you're a fractional in Canada listening and you have not joined us already, hit us up on Facebook, Fractional Pros Canada. That's a wrap on another episode of the Fractional Pros Canada podcast. If you're a fractional professional based in Canada, we'd love to have you join us in the Fractional Pros Canada Facebook group, the home for Canada's fractional community. It's where Canadian fractional executives connect, share insights, and help each other succeed. Until next time, I'm Robert Mendelson, Fractional CMO. May your impact be full-time, even if your hours are fractional.